Rabbi?
Well, in the bigger picture, more than you, Kevin. My kids are bigger, so don't have any mercy on me. I still feel bad for you guys. I'm getting an error, which is a pity. Once I go, I'll try again on the Chabad.org. Today, Yutas Kislev. There's a reason for this. Weird. 1 second. Was tut's da? The Rambam was so good. Oh. Okay, one more try and we'll go. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's 3 Prakim Rambam, Hilchos, Tumas Tzoraas, Prakim Hey, Vav, and Zayin. We're going to start with Perek Hey. The Rambam over here is going to speak about, number 1, a Tzoraas that's found, and we'll get used to these words, in a shchin or in a michvah. Up until now, we have been learning about tzoras that's found ba'oid habasar, as we'll see, and there are different rules. And we're going to also learn about a tzoras that's found in the area of the head or of the beard when there is no hair, as we'll learn about a kedeach, a baldy, a gibeach, another type of baldy, and the unique halachas of tzoras in those locations. Perek Chamishi has 11 halachas, and Chevra, let's dive right in. Halacha Aleph. So if a person, not a tzoras, a person, just for an example, gets, God forbid, a wound, and the nifshat ha'oid machmas hamaka, and the skin peels away because of this wound. Im hoisa hamaka machmas ha'esh, if the wound came because of fire, for example, the person was burned by a coal, or by emetz, or by embers, or by barzel, or by iron. We're speaking about iron that was heated up in fire, or by even, or in a stone. And the reason why the skin was removed is because of a burn. Let's get familiarized with these words, even though we already had them before. That's called a michvah. Another type of wound. Right. So a person got struck with a stone, or with wood, or if it's because of some sort of infirmity within the body, not because of something outside of it hit it, like gadov, a person has a type of wart, or chazazis, and these types of skin ailments, they caused for the skin to get ruined, or shachefes, which is the swelling, fever, vidalekes, all different types of inner ailments which can cause the skin to be removed. That it ruined the skin. They're going to be called shchin. I know that shchin literally means a boil, right? One of the 10 makas. In other words, whenever there is an ailment of the skin, we're going to halachically make one type of differentiation. Fire or not because of fire. Everything else other than fire related, nichva, all else related, we're going to call it shchin. Now, 1 second, we're not done yet. We're not speaking about our tzoras on that area yet. Now the Rambam goes into a couple of details. What happens if liben shvud, if a person had some sort of spit, which is able in itself, when it's cold, to create such a wound, and you heated it up, the fire also by itself can create this wound. So what happens if liben shvud v'hikabayim? So if the end was rounded, in other words, what is it that caused the skin to be removed or to be wounded? That was because of the heat. because the tip is not a tip, it's a ball. But if it's sharp, we're not talking about the sharpness of a knife, but it's not rounded. It's not sharp like a knife, but it's not rounded. Then there's a doubt. Im he michva, or it's a shchin. I want you to remember this, guys. Kevin, we learned that if a sharp knife was made red hot and you touch someone with it, God forbid. So the halacha is that the sharpness affects the skin prior to the heat. Now, we're going to see, just to get clear, what we want to do now is just to make clear that we know whether we're speaking about a michva or a shchin. Here we have a doubt. If a person got a burn because of the waters of Tveria, or the person got a burn because of gefes. Gefes are olive dregs that can become very hot. That's not called michva, right? Chami Tveria is not, we already learned this in Hilchos Shabbos, it's not considered something from fire. Right? When you press olives and they become very heated, that's if there's a wound or a burn, what the world would call a burn, we don't call that a burn, we call that a shkin. Now, halacha yim. Hashchim v'hamichvam kol zman shemakos tiriyos. As long as these wounds are still fresh, we call them moirdin. From rebels, it's called moirdin because when you're got to it, someone's skin is wounded. If anyone even touches it slightly, they freak out. It's the wound does not allow for any touch. Then, even if any baheres, as we'll see in a moment, that it becomes discolored, means nothing. However, if they completely healed, then you're back to oid abasa. Even though there's some sort of scar, and because of the scar, it doesn't share the same color as the skin of the flesh, doesn't matter. Once it's fully healed, then halachically it's oid habasa l'chol davar. And we spent already, Baruch Hashem, 4 chapters going in through the details of how a person can become Tomei b'tzumas saras, umetamin b'shloisha simanim. That means the head is number 1. Then any one of the 3, as we learned them in Pratim yesterday, and the Yeshbam has gotten, even if there's only a beheadus with no sign. So the idea that you put the person in a quarantine, right, and there is not only 1 week, but even if after the first week nothing changes, you give another week of quarantine. All of that is as the rules were above. However, it's why. So why are we speaking about a michva and a shchin? Halacha dalet. There's a window. There's a window from when it began to get better. It's not festering. It's not called moirdin, but it's not yet healed. Which means now there's a type of scab, even if the scab is still very thin. That is what either we call tzoreves hashchin, all right? In other words, it's this wound, not from fire, beginning to heal, and that the Torah uses these words. Or if the wound came from fire and it began to heal, we call that michyas hamichba. Now that's the first topic of this chapter. In other words, what were to happen, my friends, if you have the area, let's go to the same size, in the size of a gris, on this scab, on the tzorevas hashchin, on the michyas hamichva, that now becomes white in the colors that we mentioned in Perek Aleph. That's a unique. Now, obviously, if the skin does not become discolored to that white/pink, there's nothing to talk about. But now, if it becomes white or pink, now normally the rule will be a tzoras v'oid habasar. Now you're going to have 3 simanim that can render that person into a muchlet. Not over here. That over here, is only b'shtei simanim. Either say or love, and I know every time you're going to learn say or love, and maybe there's a few exceptions, but as a rule, even though it's written in the singular, it means 2 white hairs. The same rules, 2 white hairs. Or if it spreads, bit pisoyon. But what not if it heals? Here, healing, healthy flesh in the middle, in the size of Adasha, vechule, does not render the person into a muchlet. So that's one detail in where this is unlike Tzoras Moed Abasid. And number two, that the din of a person only with a beheadis prior to any simon is in the state of quarantined, musgar, yes, only for 1 week. And if after 1 week nothing changed, right away the kohen says, he patters him, he tells him you're free to go home. In other words, he becomes tor. So now we got the first half of this chapter. Let's go. Has to begin with that. It's on the scab, on the scar, however you want to call it, but the point is it's not fully healed. If there are two white hairs, and the kohen sees that from the outset, like we learned above, yachlit, right away you're confirmed. Then you ask then you're quarantined. Now the Rambam cannot even write Pesoyan. Remember we mentioned this yesterday. It's not shayach spreading unless the kohen saw the guy at least twice, the original time and at the end of the first week of the quarantine, because it's comparative compared to how the kohen saw it the first time. Did it now expand outwards or kolshu? The year of a seif hashavua, im neilul b'seir lavan or pasasa yachlit, and the im neilul b'klum yiftar, you're released from your quarantine. And also, as we learned in the beginning, even though you are released from the quarantine, if the beheadis sign is still there, and after a week or after a year, doesn't matter. Then what happened was one of these two simanim that rendered this person into a Matzayda comes about, either Pesoyan, it spreads, or Noil Baseir Lavan. So now Yachlit, and not since he was, go ahead.
How does he remember what it looked like? Doesn't he see a lot of people?
Okay, so it's Kevin, just to point out, I agree with you. In other words, how practical is it, Kevin? I'll tell you how practical. Just like the kohen has to remember from 1 week to the next. Whenever the din of the quarantine ends, here it only ends after 1 week. It could be the next minute he walks out and he takes a look and he's spreading. Ooh, you're right, but you're right. Yeah, and I said another year, I think that, practically not. Maybe today with pictures, if we can use technology, which is a big question. I'm not saying you could, because today there's fake news, right? Today with AI, who knows what, with all these shamas, how shaloi kedoshis, you can manipulate. I don't know. But, okay, halacha. See, here's the point. The point is that even though they both shared the same rule, why are we making an effort to know? Is it a shchin? Shchin means tzarevas ha-shchin, just to know. Michva means michyas ha-michvia. L'may nafkamina, I'll tell you the nafkamina. They don't combine one with the other. And therefore, and therefore, the ein poison zelozeh. And also, the ein poison lo'ed abasa. So that's amazing, Kevin. If I have this scab, if the whole scab only has the size of the gris, it's not shayach pisoyin. Pisoyin only must mean that the beheadis is not occupying all of this area. So it could expand still on this area. If it goes to another area, whether it is from the shchin to the michvah, from the michvah to the shchin, or to healthy flesh, the beheadis in the place of the seichan, kitzim, for example, or in the other way around also not. You have the total amount. But the total amount is because you have two adjacent wounds. One is the michvah wound, one is the shchin wound. On both, part here, part there, you have the total of a gris. It's nothing. It's not a beheadis. Also in that direction, and then so that's another group. That's the rules of the first 5 chapters. But one of the 3 simanim is also pisayin. Also ain't a pisayin. Now another interesting cases. So if you have inside of your palm. Now, guys, it's interesting. I know that in many slangs and many cultures, there is this expression. We have it also over here, that on the palm of my hand, right here will grow. That's where it comes from this. One of the simonim is here growing. Here doesn't grow from the palm of the hand. So now here's the issue. If the whole soreves if that type of unique skin is only the size of a gris, and the beheres takes up all of the space, so there's only two samanim, right? Right? We don't have the michya. It cannot spread because, like we mentioned, if it spreads into regular flesh, it's nothing. Here cannot grow because here doesn't grow. So now it says that Rambam. So you would argue, what's the point of declaring this guy a Matzoida or to quarantine him? I'm sorry, it cannot get worse. Still, Yaskid. I'll tell you why. Because it is possible. Because even though you don't allow expansion from Shchin to Oira Basar, from Shchin to the Michvah, it could be that right adjacent to this current Tzorevas HaShchin, that person will get another Zetz. He'll get another Tzorevas HaShchin, and now it can expand. Shema Yevel L'Shchin Acha B'tzida, the Sifsel Toichai. How great. When you hear it, you say, of course, but no. But for that, you have to learn. Halachah. Because on that place there was a burn. So then this guy Nebuch, sometimes you bang yourself on the toe in the same place. That's what's happening. This guy is getting wounded on the same location. So the second nullifies the first. Bitla michvas ashchin. Both directions. If umichva, that after there was a burn and now it's starting to heal, now you get another zetz, not with fire. So then Bittel, Shchin, Amich, the latter one is the winner. If you don't know which one, because like we mentioned, they both follow the same rules. Even though I can argue there will be one nafkamina, which was the case that we learned above. But the guy has it, let's just in the palm of his hand, exactly a gris of one of this doubt. And the only reason why you're quarantining him is because he might get adjacent a similar type of skin wound. If we don't even know which one is this, we don't know if the other one is going to be the similar one. But the Rambam doesn't write that. In other words, the boil, this area now no longer is in the process of healing. What happened is that the color, that flesh completely healed, but the beheres remained. And after the normal sodas that we have been speaking about in the first 5 chapters, when he comes back to the coin a week later, or there 2 weeks, even 2 weeks later, now that area became a shchin. Says that Rambam Yerah Batchila. It's as if he came for the first time. So all of the rules begin as of now. So, which in any direction you're going, you did not eat up a week of quarantine. It's a new nega, whether there's 2 weeks max or whether there's 1 week max. It starts from now. Now, Halacha Ches is going to speak about the second topic of this chapter. So we have the first 5 chapters, the rules of a nega, ba'oid habasar. We have now this unique halacha of a nega that's on a part of your flesh that's really called either tzoreves hashchin or michyas hamichva. And now let's speak about the phenomena that especially for smart people. Smart people are baldies, just to know a klal. That's what we're going to learn. If someone's hair, all of the hair fell off, this is like a real smart, big chacham. There's nothing left. Bein machmas choili, now a seriousness, either due to sickness. Bein machmas raka, mako, or this person never got some sort of a blow, wound. She'ein roy legadol seir, kevan, we do not need a picture, just look in the mirror. Bein she'achal devar rabashina masaser, whether this guy ate foods that caused it to fall off, whether this person smeared something, right? We learned about the oils. I'm sure some of these oils, that was the reason, the tip. He got tipped too many times. Now, even if this is a person that is going to get the hair back, that's a very big rule. And the dinim of a baldy is, how are you right now? That guy's underlined the word kol. Whoever can see Kavan, I see many hairs coming out of Kavan's part. You're not included in this. You're not smart enough yet. In other words, we're speaking about someone that has no hair. He's either going to be called a kereach, guys, remember these words, or a gibeach. When the Rambam will say in a moment, like this. So what you have to do is, I know this is a visual, you have to go to the top of your head. I don't mean where the hairline used to begin when you still were young. I don't mean that. I'm talking about mamish. If a person were to take their entire face, go to the highest part of your head. Go to the highest part of your head. And if you're going to go from there, and every place going towards the back of your neck, that area, when there is no hair, you're called a kereach. Not if there's a little strip of hair that even people that are very, what we call bald, sometimes the bottom of their neck and the bottom of the hairline, there's still a strip left. That's not the kereach. Kereach means the back is completely gone, and start from the same point. If from here to the front, going down towards the panim of the panim. That's it. That's called the gibeach. So let's read it inside. Meaning, then that person is called a kereach. Back is missing. Going to the forehead, that's called the gibeach. Okay, now we identified when the Torah speaks explicitly. Remember in Tazria, kereach, gibeach. Now we know what we're talking about. So now what? What will be the unique halacha test? Hakorachas, hagabachas. They are also, first of all, so you always need to have first the beheadis. The beheadis doesn't change. It's 4 shades of sickly white, or as they are in pink, as we learned in Perek Aleph. But that in itself is not enough to render a person tummy. Here also, you only have 2 simanim to make a person tummy, not 3. But these 2 simanim, Kevan, are not the 2 that we learned in the beginning of the chapter. Right? In the shchin and the michvah, just to make it simplified, the 2 simanim are expansion and white hair. Healthy flesh doesn't do anything. Here, there'll be another 2, which is michya. Healthy flesh will render you. Expanding will render your tummy. But you know what? Not white hair. Interesting. No, but since it's a place of hair, so we don't view hair coming out or hair turning white garnished. Interesting. Another thing, here also, like Tzara Basar, there is the option of you being quarantined for a full 2 weeks. And that's explicit, because the Torah says, Kamara Tzoras Oira Basar. And this Kamara doesn't mean that that 2 white hairs will render your tummy. It means that there is the possibility of a person being in the state of muska not only for 1 week, but for 2 weeks, like Tzoras Oira Basar. Lafisha Ein Baseir, which we're speaking, then Ein Haser Alavim Tzivantuma. And by the way, that means even if 2 white hairs grew out, since we are speaking about a baldy, we discount all the hair. And again, the definition of a baldy is not the thinning of the hair, not what people today will go, oh, you're going bald. No. It means complete. Kereach in the back, gibeach in the front. Okay. Now, some applications. And then in it, he right away comes with a michya. And by the way, this has to follow the rules that we learned yesterday. So the michya, right, the beheres has to have the size of a gris, and the michya has to have the size of an abdasha. And if you have the minimum shiurim, it has to be mamish in the center, right? The space of 2 hair of beheres on each side, still surrounding it, etc. The only thing he has is this beheres siman. Then you ask her, right? The client will say you're quarantined, and you come back at the end of the week. The only 2 options, which is either michya or persoin yachlit. If nothing happened, again, the asker shavua sheni. Now, after the end of it, when it comes back at the second time, pasas michya yachlit. If nothing happened, even though the beheaders did not go away, then yiftar, you're released, you're sent home. But again, it doesn't completely knock everything off. You still have a beheaders, and therefore, the impasas michya. Then yachlit halacha yud hakorachas v'hagabachas einon mitztarfei zoim zo. In other words, the fact that the Torah separates them the whole time, bikorachtoi oi or means not both. And therefore, for example, if a person had a size of a beheadis, it was exactly by the boundary. It went until the boundary that separates the front and the back. And now, when you're speaking about spreading, itaka is spread. But so what? It spread from the kereach to the gebeach, from the gebeach to the kereach. The aim places it won't halachically have the din of expansion. So again, the beauty here is that it's easier to remember. I'm saying beauty for people like us, because here, other than there's no say or love on, all of the other rules are mamish following the same. Final halachim in today's first chapter in Perek K, halacha yudal, zok the Rambam. Now, ha korachas oy hagabachas, and now we're throwing into the pot over here ha zokon shenikrach, right? For men, where there is supposed to be facial hair, if they also completely were lost, no matter the reason. And now, so now you have, there should be the din of a karachas or gavachas. But here, listen to what happened. On that location, the person Nebach got a zetz, and now he has, when the Rambam writes shchin, he means tzorevas hashchin, or there was a burn, and now there's the michyas ha-michva. So the question is, how do we view this location? Is it the din of a karachas? Like, do you have hesker for 2 weeks? Or is it a din of tzaras on shchin oy michva? So the din is mitamin kishchin uchemichva sheba oy abasar. It no longer has a din of a karachas oy gabachas. Sheharoish oy hazakan shenikrachu is ka'oy abasar l'chol davar. The only thing is that you cannot become tummy with white hair because you don't have any hair. But other than that, now 1 second, I want to say the following. This guy doesn't have hair. So when you're saying that this person will become a tzoras like the dinim of a shchin and a michva, no michya, but there's not going to be white hairs. This guy doesn't have hair. So really, the only way this guy can become a muchlat is by pisoyon. Aha. Now, when you have a person, either when they're born, so some people are born, or before the chasim hazaken, whether bar mitzvah, whether you're 18, whatever the age that Hashem made you, right? The place on the face for a man prior to the coming out, to the sprouting of the image of God, of the beard. And some people have blisters, so they're growing in that area, but on the skin of the blister, there was never hair. That's oir habasar. And therefore, going back to the first 5 chapters, and similarly, zakana ishav asaris, both a woman, right, won't grow a beard, or a person who is a eunuch, he's a saris. Actually, but by a saris and even by a woman, if hair grows from a certain place, that has a din of a zakana ish. Now, what's the din if a nega appears on the bearded area, not that became bald? Bald is this chapter. We didn't learn that, guys. Amir Hashem, that's tomorrow's first chapter. That's Perek Ches. That we'll learn later. And we'll see, it's not only man related, it's whoever has a beard. Shemetamin din sakan kamashi yisbar, but we're going to call those dinim not the din of the baheres, but the din of nesakim, and that will leave for Perek Ches. Okay, so now it's such a sad. The seder is awesome. So we have Beira Basar, we had Soreves Hashchin, sometimes only called Shchin, Michyas HaMichva, sometimes only called Michva, but it only means the Michyas HaMichva, and Kereach Gibeach, Korach Legabachta. That is what we learned until now. Now, Perek Vav is going to speak about places in the body where even if you have everything began with a baheres, there are certain places in the body that you will not be rendered a mitzvah because you have a baheres. Let me just say these words that Megoyim won't be metamayu only if they came on your body Bisha'a shehem ru'uyim latame and ubemakim shehem ru'uyim latame, as we'll explain that big cloud that we'll learn in Perek Vav. And we're going to learn another big topic in Perek Vav, the final topic, which is what do you do with the suffix? Now, the truth is, we learned yesterday already two sveikas. And the Rambam in both cases, the first one is easier to remember. Again, the Hashgacha process today is Taka Yud Tes, Kislev, Rosh Hashanah, Tavshin Pei Gimel. And the Alter Rebbe, as we mentioned yesterday in Perek Aleph and Tanya, right, quotes the Rabbah, like Pasuk Puman Begir say, that is the story that the Rambam Paskins has explained by the Kesef Mishnah, not like Rabbah, even though he was an Neshama Beguf, but he wasn't that enough Beguf. That's the way he words it, more or less. There we Paskin Net Tameh. There's another case of suffix that will repeat Tameh. Other than those two exceptions, normally suffix Daraisa, your Mahmud, we're going to learn that it's like before you were called a Tameh person, every suffix will be lenient. And on the other side, once you were rendered Tameh, you want to remove the Tumah, there every suffix will render your Tameh. It's almost like in other areas in Allah you have, the Cheskas de Mikara, which will be the dominant, that will be the second topic of this chapter. Perek Vav has 7 halachas, beginning with halacha. Elo mekaymes ba'adam she'ein mistamin ba'beheres. I think for me so far, a lot easier to remember this than paraduma. But that's just me. No, it's they b'chlal won't become tummy. The inside of the eye. Now, how is it shaykh for your white in your eye to be? I don't know. But it's shaykh. You have to have shimush for that. Or inside the ear. I think that inside the ear, doesn't mean the cartilage, like where we smeared the blood. We just learned, all right, the blood and the oil on the mitzvah. From the asham mitzvah. I think it's pushed inside. I think. And inside the nose, that's clear. Inside the nose means up the nostrils. Inside the mouth. And also, guys, we also learned by Paradumam, and we pointed out there that we're not always consistent whether we view the tongue as Eber Shabagolui. Here, we do not consider it part of the body. Not only not the tongue, when a person closes their mouth naturally, even in the lips. So there is the parts that are visible. That's there. A person could become a mitzvah. Any part that's concealed when your mouth is closed, that's called teichapeh. And if someone, has a little bit too much cholent, so what happens is when you sit down, when a person is a little bit, when there's reserve for emergency fat on the body, so the body folds. You have folds on the body, and any area inside those folds when you're sitting, it's not suspect to the holding of the head. Same thing if a person has extra flesh on their neck, that can happen. Or v'tachas hadad, or ubeis hashechi. You understand? All of these are body parts that when you are either sitting or standing, like when it comes to the beis hashechi, it makes no difference. It's not begoli, or under your foot, right? The sole of your foot, kafarego. Vahatzi poiden mamish, the nail. In other words, my nail, you can see through the nail, but I know I'm seeing through, and you can, you have normally the red, whatever it looks like. And if you're lacking vitamins, you'll have some white in the bottom. That's the norm. Think about it. What happens if in there, doesn't count. V'haroish v'hazoken sheyesh b'hem seir, not the karachas and the gabachas of last chapter, or the final v'hashchin v'hamichvia that are moedin, as we mentioned in the beginning of introducing, that the whole dinim of last chapter is by tzorebas hashchin. But when they're still festering, when they're filled with liquid, when they are called moedin, we said moedin is when a person has a very acute wound prior to its scabbing. When you touch it, the person jumps. It's moedin against anything. That's called in the stage of moedin. It says that I'm kol leila amakoymis ain't mistamin benagoy, nor the aim mitztarfim benagoy, nor v'lei hanega poisel otoichem, the aim mistamin mishum michya, the aim ma'akvenes oipach kol olaven, which is the topic of next chapter. We'll repeat this when we learn the next chapter. Shenemar ba'oir b'soroi v'chol elu ain't oir goli. Some of the areas in halacha aleph is not called oir. L'mashal, I'll say under the nail. You can see it, but it's not oid. Umehem, it's taka called oid, but it's naturally mechusa, and it's not goli. And the Rambam gives a great example. V'oidem hasfasayim nidem kebeis hasasarim. V'oidem means the red of the lips means exactly what we said before. That when you close your lips, which is a good state to be in, right? Not the shredding the whole time. That is not called a red. If you notice, inside the mouth, it becomes redder. And therefore, since it's not goli, the point it's not visible when you open your mouth. Halacha beis. Now, now that Rambam wants to make it clear. That's like that you do become a mitzvah with a beheres, like we learned in the last chapter. Only two other samanim, Michya and Pisayin, and not the Seir Love. Or means it's starting to heal. Yes, mitava mebeheres k'moshe b'yard. Narvas then here also the ein mitztarfen zem the ein nego erabasam poisel l'soichan the ein mitame mishum Michya. That was the unique part of the first topic of Perek Hey. Avo, why is we bringing it here? Because the Rambam made mention already of something that, again, we're going to come back in the next chapter, of this very unusual halacha that if the entire body is white with the color of any of the colors or all of the colors combined, a little bit here, a little bit there, of soras, then at certain times the person will not become tummy. So now, Avol ma'akt v'nesahay kuli lovin. In other words, if that part is not lavan, even though the pesoyin into it doesn't count, but if that part did not turn completely white, then the person will not be given the heter. Oh, you're not called a lavan. It doesn't work on both sides. No, it works lachumra and not lakul over here. Halachigim. Beheres asmucha l'roish, or la'ayin, or la'oizen. In other words, a person has a beheres, but it's near an area which is not shaykh to become tummy through a beheres, like we just mentioned in halachal. Which means be'oid. What does be'oid mean? That surrounding the beheres on all sides, you have a little bit of flesh on which it's shaykh to have a beheres. Now here, also not royal episode. In other words, if even though the air it's by the boundary, it can have to sign in the other direction. It's not be'oir. It's not fully be'oir abason. Halacha dalid elu b'haris taharais atkan. Guys, we learned about a makoin. That's royal abaheres. Now let's speak about people. Great examples. A non-Jew that has a beheres, and you know what happens? He converts. You know what's an amazing halacha? He's going to come to the coin. That beheres does not count. Because like we said, this is the big cloud. When could a beheres be problematic? If it fits all of the rules, only that if when it came in, when it was noilan, when it appeared, it either appeared on a person that's ro'ui to become tamei, or in a location. I'll speak about the location in a moment. Or when a baby in the mother's womb, already had a negat soras. It's not shaykh, it's not adam. And he's born with it. The noilat. It's nothing. Another great example. So one of the exceptions of the makim in the body is if a person is overweight, which is normal when you get older and you sit down, at certain parts of your stomach, they lean one on the other. So what happens if a person had a beheres on that location and then they lost weight? And now, you can always see it. You won't be tamei because it has to be noilad. That's the word. Bisha'a. That it's roid. Bakemed v'nigla. Or b'roisha b'zaken shoyba k'shoybam seyar. And then v'nikrechu. And now that you became a kereach, ooh, that's the perek hey. Yeah, you can become a mitzvah on like kerachas and gabachas. Problem is that this beheres came on your body prior to you becoming the baldy. Or when they were still moedin at a time that it cannot render you tamei, and now the taka began to heal. Now there's a scab. In all of these cases, the person is completely tahoirais, right? Because that's the rule. You can only become tamei with a beheres if it's noilad bim adam or bim makom shel ru'uya. Halach v'chein. right? And as we learned in the end of last chapter, then that area has the din of oir habasar. So that means it was born, Dovi, at a time where it could make you tummy. But then the here came. And now the hair left. In regular flesh. And after you had the beheadis, you get this kanak of shchina or michal. And not they began to heal. No, the beginning of the heal is when the rules changed. Now they fully heal. That it began and it ended. This is gavaldik. In a makoim, in an adam that can render your tummy. Another rule. Since in between there was a time that there was a halach, there was a physical change, which changed the halachic status of that place. Ayid is ayid, right? So once in your life, Yom Kippur, it's beautiful things. We have Nagoyim, right? But if imagine, but if at some time you do tshuva, and the way the Rebbe defines ahir tshuva, that's the way the Rebbe approached it, and therefore the Rebbe says we're all zakayim. Every yid has ahir tshuva. Not that it's enough, chas v'shalom. We're not lowering the bar, but this bar, these ruchnis, the kochaychas, that there's a moment, even though you went back. How beautiful! Now nishtanu mareim. Now here is one thing. In all of the above is if the same beheadis that appeared is the beheadis that you're looking at now. So since either it was noilad or if it went through a period, but what happens if it changes? Now it's a new beheadis. Not because it doesn't have to disappear or reappear. Nishtanu mareim, bain, it went. Now guys, we learned in Perek Aleph, it can change, Shmuley, all in a problematic color. So you can have the least intense, which is the krum beitza, which is a problem. It went worse. That makes more sense. But even if it went in the other direction, ben shakol, it was like snow, and now it's only like an egg. That krum beitza doesn't make a difference. It's new. It's a different shade. For example, and after he converted, it became kasheleg. Or even a bigger chiddush, if it went in the right direction, and it's in the tar direction, it got less intense white. Then so even though we know this beheadus was on him while he was in the mother's womb, that means it was noilad, bisha'ah, or on an adam that's not roy, doesn't matter, but now it's a different shade. Or if the if they had any change, no matter in what direction, now it's like a new nega. But if it didn't change, that's another application in the big Perek Aleph that Rambam asked. If all of the four colors are the same halachically and they combine one with the other, why do we even have to name them? The Rambam wrote over there, we have to name them because for you to qualify, you have to know what they are. But now we see there's an application because if you saw it and the baby was born and they brought him to the kohen and he saw the color, and the kohen says there's nothing to worry about because he had it before he was born. Now if it changes, you have to know what's called a change. Halacha Kol Safik Nagoyim. Now this is the second topic of this chapter, which is huge. Kol Safik Nagoyim. Chutz, I know always there's exceptions, but here the Rambam is limiting the exceptions. Chutz only from the two sfeikas that we mentioned until now, the chumrah. And Shmuley, let me tell you these two chumras. First of all, the rule is by a normal siman saras, skin white first, then white hair, tummy. If we know that first the hair turned white and then the skin turned white, tahar. Safek. That was one case where the Rambam said tummy, and we said safek. In other words, you have a doubt, and we pass on the chumrah. The other case was when you have a baheris in the size of a gris. And there's no other siman. Okay, so quarantine, musgar. He comes back in a week, it's in the size of a cellar. But you know what we don't know? Did that original one remain where it was? And therefore, this is called, it expanded. Or it's taka big as a seller, but I'm not certain. Maybe the original Beheres completely got healed, or we learned yesterday it healed more than 50%. I know that now this is a problem, but you can't call it an expansion if the original one is not there. So in such a suffix, the Rambam also said we're machmer. Other than those two exceptions, the rule is if the person was not yet deemed impure, you have to remember that. Then, even though there's a suffix, you'll remain tar. But only achale niskak latuma. The Rambam is going to give examples. You get it, Shmuel. If the person was never deemed impure, you have a suffix tar. Once they were redeemed impure, now there's a suffix. In other words, maybe he's getting better. No. You always leave the status quo. Let's get examples for that. I'm just going to give a gavaldic examples. Two people come to a coin. One guy has a beheres kegris, and the other one comes with the size of a cellar, which is a lot bigger than a gris, which means they both have enough of a problem for the coin to render both of them musgar. And if it's ba'oid habasar, however, the rules are the oid habasar, if any one of the three happens, they'll become no. And these gira. They both come back and they both have a cellar. Now, what does that mean? It means that one of them is in the same status, not mukhlat. The other one should be mukhlat. We don't, not the guy remembers, not the coin, we don't know. Now, the Rambam adds another kanech, which is more than a kanech. Now, the case that I gave is easier to chab because we don't know which one is musgar, which one now gets worse. What happens if it's on the same person? This is a big chiddush. In other words, there's one person. Reuven has two, on the right hand, the left hand. Kigris, kasela. He comes back the next week, they're both kasela. I know, the kohen knows, you're the kohen, we're learning it, that this guy is a mukhlat. No, he's not a mukhlat. Because you don't know which one of the two had the pisoyim. That also means you have a doubt in what happened, and that's you have to know which one grew. I'm speaking about the second case. But Rambam says that's called you were not niskak latuma. That's another important rule. Niskak latuma doesn't mean that you were not musgad. It means you were never made mukhla yet. Then hareizatar. And avade in the first example, which one of these two people is becoming the mukh? Aber, now that is the lenient part. Now let's give an example of once it's niskak latuma, sveikoi tamei halacha vav, niskak latuma sveikoi tamei keitzad shnaim shaboy salakoyin ubazeh beheres kegris. Kasela and Vizgiram and the Seif HaShavua. Listen to what happened over here, guys. Everyone comes back with a larger size. One went from a gris to more than a sela, and the other one that had a sela comes back with more than a sela. Now here you're going to argue, you don't know who came first. With a gris, it doesn't matter because I know vadai that everyone had pisoyim. Someone gives great examples. That's already I don't know whether you went from the gris to the sela ba'oid, whether you went from a sela. So what? But you definitely have a nega that's expanded. Sure, because before one of them should be made one, even on the same person. One did not expand. You don't know which one expanded. Here you know it expanded. You just don't know the dimensions of the expand. Doesn't matter. Because since you know Vadai, it had the minimum size. Vadai, it expanded a kolshu. In either direction, that's enough. But hold on now. The Rambam is introducing something that we really will spend more time in the later chapters to learn. Because don't forget that we're hoping that once a person is called a mukhlat, they will become tahir. One of the first things that has to happen is that the simanim have to go away. Now we're beginning to learn its reverse. Now let's go into the reverse. Now, so this guy is called niskak latum. Both people. Now, what does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. If I begin with the gris, just to know the rules, and I come back after a week or after 2 weeks, and it's kesela va'oid, and the kohen tells me, oh, muchlat, if it goes back to the sela, the pesoyin was not reversed. Because what is a pesoyin? An expansion of a culture. If I begin with the gris, and now it went a foot, and then it goes back a half a foot. It's equally pesoyin relative to the musgar. So one of them knows, Choyel, we don't know now, Ezehu, Ezehu, they are both Tamei. So it's each one might have been the one that came with the gris. We didn't learn those pratim, which means, yeah, I know you went from a gris to a sela va'oid. And now what? You're only if it goes back to the gris, can we say that the pesoyin went away? We don't know that. You were already rendered muchlat. Niskak l'tuma sveikay tamei.
It's hard to get in, it's hard to get out.
Very good. No, it's the cheskas de meikara. These are the words that we learned in the Zikin. It's very dominant here. And that's the meaning of the Mishnah of the Chazal when they say Mishnah is kaklatuma sveikay tamei. Ashreinu. Beautiful. Chein mishu isu bebeheres. And then uba seir lavan shekadam asabeheres halkap. So seir lavan shekadam abeheres. That means if there are 2 white hairs that came before the beheres, not a similar tum. But there's also in that same beheres area another 2 hairs or more that turned white after the beheres. In other words, when the kohen looks at it, guys, there are 4 white head, which means the kohen knows vadai. This guy is tamei. Hairs dovi. He doesn't know from which white hairs. The ene you do a zesh akadem zesh hepach. So the same thing. Im yitray chesken nestapik loy. Niskak latuma is not hesken. It's muchlat. So this guy he came the first time. He came with a beheres and 2 white hairs, and the guy tells the kohen the white hairs were here before. So the kohen says you're only muskar. No, you're not a mitzvah. You have a beheres. Then it comes back. It makes so much sense. It comes back a week later, and there's 4 hairs that are white. I don't which ones. He remains a muskar. The guys again. Torah doesn't mean he has a beheres. Means it doesn't take you further. Now, the 2 white hairs fell off. I need to know which 2 white hairs. I need to know the hairs that made me muchlat have to be the ones that fell off. If the other 2 fell off, nothing changed. Which is why, great example. He gave both an example for the Pesoyin. He gave an example of the Seir Lavan. That's the meaning of Niskak, Misha, Niskak Latuma, Sveik. Final halach in this chapter. Mi Shabaitzel Koyen. And Vira'ohu, Shutzara Chesged. Or now it's at a point where the Kohen has to pater him because he stayed in a state of Hesged for the max, either for 2 weeks, or like we learned in the previous chapter, for 1 week. But prior to the Kohen making a statement, the Kohen already saw him. Now, doesn't count what the Kohen saw, it counts what the Kohen said. So then, imagine you come to a Kohen, you have the beheres, let's say you have the Michya. You have the Michya, he looks at it, he knows prior to him saying, Tamei, you got healed. Which is by verbalizing Tamei Ata, so what now? So I guess if this is what happened right away from the outset, or b'seif shmor showing, guys, what went away? Not the beheres, not the simonim went away, right? So then Yasgiroi. And what's the rule that's the max of quarantine? The point is that even though the Kohen saw it, you don't have to now say Tamiyato and then paskin again because it went away. Prior to you saying the words Tamiyato, nothing happened yet. and you say those words, you say words that conform the reality of this second, like the power of tshuva. And if there's a change for the better, it's taken into account. Final chapter of today's three prakim, Chevra Hilchos Tumas Soras, Perek Zayin, is the chapter that is going to focus on this one amazing rule. We actually made reference to it already twice today. It's a part of this mitzvah that makes it beyond our understanding. Or at least even though the Rambam holds that everything could be understood, we should make an effort to understand it, but it's difficult, and that is that the beheadis, discolorated flesh, if hafach kuloi lavan, you would say it's worse. No, he's rendered tar, but we don't always say it, so we're going to have to clarify when we say it and when we don't say it. Perek Shvi has 7 halachas. Chavafreila halacha alf. Bishois loy behedes. Now, guys, v'huchlat, underline those words. It wasn't just, it was the behedes and v'huchlat. The echad misimani tuma. Now, whether it was batchila, which means that from the outset he came to the kohen with the behedes and with one of the simanim, or there was hezget, right? Not yet huchlat, but there's a behedes here. Oy, right? Beinach and hezget. Oy shuhuskar, right? The point is not huchlat. You are already in a state of huchlat, or you are already in a state of huskar. Remember that. Dovi, not that I came to the kohen the first time white like a mitzvah. No. I was already declared either the worst or I'm already quarantined. And now the thing expands, not a little bit, but bekuloi, as we'll define the whole body, even hepach lavan. Point is that this person was already judged by the kohen, as we learned in the end of last Perek, either the worst or you're already a kohen muskar. And this dinei tumah we'll learn later. There are dinei tumah by the kohen muskar. It's not stam quarantine. Then you're that hafach kulei lavan, you're taught. Avol im huskar, but tumah, and either the 2 weeks. Or if you remember in Perek, hey, by the Tzorevas Hashchin, by the Nichyas HaMichva, there's only a 1 week max. The time of quarantining ended, and now you're beniftar, which means you're completely out of Tumah. So either you came, right, or here you're potted, now Harezu Tamei Muchlat. Harezu Tamei Muchlat. Wow. Halacha beis. Same thing. Haba batchila. Who kolei hafech lavan. What's amazing over here, guys? And let me just add, why muchlat? I'll tell you why muchlat. Because that's called a pisoyan. Because you didn't come kulei lavan. So now that it's kulei lavan, not only is it a problem, but it's a confirmed problem. Now in halacha beis, the kohen never judged you before. So you can't say pisayin, but there can be another sin. That if the person lechatchila comes, which is one of the simanim which will render you muchlat, or shtei saras levanais, takem machlita, you become a muchlat. Im ein sham simentuma, but he comes batchila kuloi lavan. So then he's like any other mitzvah that comes only with a behedes. Maskid and oisa shvuah rishayin. Don't forget, guys, there is no area into which it's shayach pisayin. So for technical reasons, now you only have the two, either michya or the seir lavan. So noidel by seir lavan, which means 2 hairs, oy michya machlita. Lo noidel by klum, like any other person that comes only with a behedes bo'er habasar maskir shvuah sheni. Lo noidel by siman tuma reisa toir shadin behedes u'agadei l'kedin aktano. Or the Rambam separates the end of halacha aleph and halacha beis because of this one nakuda. If someone was already a musgar, because they only had a behedes without any simanim, and 2 weeks come and go, and they're patterned, since we learned in the beginning of the series that if the person has pisoyan later, it's considered pisoyan, kulay hafach lavan is muchlat. Or let me word it like this: the whole leniency that if hafach kulay lavan tar is only if the person was already in a state of musgar or muchlat. Go. Now, and now let's go through. So the person came lachatchila kulei hafach lavan. It's like a beheres. Now he gets 2 white hairs. But then vishchiru shteim, oy achas mehem, or hikziru shteim, oy achas mehem, or nismach hashchin l'shteim, oy la'achas mehem. And we already described that if it's nismach l'shchin, right, we don't count that area. Oy hikev hashchin hashhteim, oy achas mehem. All of this in I think it was Perek Beis when we learned about the details of Seir Lovin, it takes away the power of the Seir Lovin. In all of these cases, and you know what? Like when a person has a beheres that doesn't fill the whole body. Then if another 2 white hairs come, or now a michya comes, in other words, if a person comes batchilo to the kohen, he's no different than a person coming with a beheres the size of a gris. Now, doesn't matter how quick that happened, how slow it happened, how gradual. Meaning the kohen already rendered a judgment prior, negative. Now this change happened. That happened in 1 moment. That happened over a year. I don't care. Like we mentioned, even though it's more than the week, more than the 2 weeks. So what? Now it's called Pisayin, coming. Like we mentioned, Yaskid. Another detail. When you speak about Kulei Hafach Lavan, just like the Rambam Paskin in Perek Aleph, that if you have the minimum size of a gris, but it's only made out of all of the 4 shades, it's a Tamei Beheres. Same thing over here. Whether the whole body has one of the 4 maras, really it's almost 8 because it's those 4 or pink. And clear Hakom and Starfin and Bein Lataroi, Bein Latamoy. Wow. Tani means if the guy was already Musgar or Mukhlat, and now Kuli Hafach Lavin, but not all of the same shade, as long as all of the shades are within the problematic shades, that's called Hafach, that's Latari, and Abada Latamoy, Kamay Shabiyanu, Halachigim. So a guy comes with the, let's call it a beheres ktan, the minimum size. Uba michya ka'adasha, which is the minimum size, which makes it problematic. And therefore, like we mentioned. So now he's a mukhlat. How did we begin this chapter? That if the person is a mukhlat and now hafach kulei lavan, now they're taught, right? And then the michya went away. Or first the michya went away and now parcha bekulai. Point is that this person went from a state of mukhlat into hafach kulai lavan. I don't care whether you have another simon or not, or if another simon will come about later. You were made mukhlat because of the michya. That disappeared and now you have to say, in all of these cases, since your entire body became white after you were deemed tamei, you fall in the heter of hafach kulei lavan. Noilad by michya, but if hafach kulei lavan, and afterwards there's a michya in the body, tamei. Clearly, you know it's gavaldik. Yeah, I can even argue the logic because the michya is not hafa, it's no longer hafa kulay. Who should tia kadosha, but it has to follow the rules. Mirubas said that maybe the svara is because now you're not entirely white. Hoysa baba heres uba seir lavan, and you had the 2 white hairs, and v'ochle b'seir lavan. That's why you became a mukhlat, and now parcha b'kulay. Afa pisha seir lavan b'mukaymi oimei, you're taught. Because it says, which means only when there is a michya inside the entire white body are you tamei. The michya mistami zeshenefach kulei lavan achar hechler achar hesket, which implies and not the seir lavan. That maybe the logic is because your body is complete. Just because you have 2 white hairs, it doesn't change the fact that your body is entirely white, and you only became white. That's the key. Also, bisman hechler. So the guy had the Baheres Katana, and then he came back and it grew. Muchlat. And now, you're taught. Here again, if after that happened, then you were deemed taught. Now you have a michya, so now you're tamei. Halachadal. That we said she'enon mitamin mishum michya shebetoicha beheres, as we explained when we learned the din of a michya appearing on the tips. Nevertheless, mitamin uma'akven esanepach kulei lovin. They are negative enough. They don't render a person tamei because of the michya inside of a heres katana. But for you to be mater and to say, now it's hafach kulei lovin, if beroish of these evarim you have healthy flesh, it's not the problem that there is a michya within the tzoras. That not, but you're not hafach kulei lovin. Tetzad muchla de muska shehilben kulei b'tzoras, but chutz michadasha basachayim. And even if the sadasha was beroish's boy beroish chat mechayetze behen, so in the whichever state you were in, didn't get better. I know that the heter, right, of a michya is not, or the problem of a michya is not when it is beroshe evarim, but it's you're not kuli hafach lavin. Gaval chein said this guy that's either muchlat or muskar shenepa kuli lavin, and therefore betahar im chasa by kadosh basar chai afil berosh echad min evarim also muchlat. Nepach kula lemana tzoras chutz mechadasha. Afilu beroish echad min evarim shenem ala boyak. Hanei zatom muchlat. Amazing. No, it's kulay means kulay. Shenemar vihine kisas tzoras. Only, and if any other part has any part of boyak, not good. The boyak doesn't make you tummy. The tzoras beheres makes you tummy, but you don't have the heter of nepach kulay. Afilo hoysem mixa soadasha b'sar chai umiktsasa boyhak harezet simen letuma nepach kulei lamaret soras v'tohar, and then chaza by basa kamara boyak, not michya. So you don't have a now. Once you were pater, harezet tor ache yiro by kadosha b'sar chai. Shenemar ubiyoyim herois boy, meaning even in the guy that's nefach koli lovin, but there has to be basar chai and not a boyak. Chazer boy kadasha, miksasa basar chai, miksasa boyak. Also, ena simen tuma fareyu bit harasay. Gewalk. Halachei. Kol tamei shepar chatzaras bekuloi tahar. Nisgala mi menu kadoshu basar chai in the other direction, like we said, nitma. But then it goes back and forth. If chazav and eskasev etzoras taught, chazav and esgala nitma even 100 times. His chil basar chai li his galois v'harei umoyse v'hoylach v'hatzoras mis ma'etes. So now you remain tamei until you don't even have the size of a gris of the maheres. Halacha. Any portion of the skin. This is making reference to the beginning of Perek Vav, that there are certain places that don't render your tummy with abaheres. But all of the parts of the body, that's ma'akev hoifach kol love. But including the Rosh Eivarim. But so for example, parcha b'kuloi, but not in the area of the roish and the zaken. The roish means where the hair grows. Not on the area where there's a shchin and a michvah that even did not yet begin to heal. So abaheres there is nothing. As we learned, and therefore it's not shaykh to have the baheres be'oyer habasar harezata. So now they are places in where if you have the baheres, it is problematic. So now it is a tummy. Because you don't have the heter of nepach kol eleven. I don't care when that happened. It has to be now. The person anywhere on the flesh that shaykh to tzaras is loving. Because now they are the oil baheres. Hoye Bashtei Baharois. Achas Yesh Basim and Tumava Achas Tohiram. Chavar Halt Kop. Now they're both problematic, but one of them doesn't have the siman, cannot be machlet you. And now we'll parcha tohid a lot of meyom. And v'acharkach parcha bekuloi harei zatar, because you were a muchlat betuma. Even though the one that spread was coming from the one that did not make you tummy, and we learned at the beginning of this chapter that if you come lechatchila to the kohen, you're like any other person with abahedas. Doesn't matter. This person was already deemed muchlat. Or they weren't two fingers, or they weren't two eyelids, which means that they look like two bahadas kabehedas achas. And when you open up your eyelids, they look like two negoyim. In other words, there's basar separating them. Doesn't matter. But that basar doesn't count. The eye, as we learned in one of the examples in Perek Vav. And the final halacha zayin. Yesh mare nigoy lakoyin v'niskar mipnei shehigdim laharoisai. There will be scenarios that if you went to the kohen sooner than later, because you did not delay, you're going to benefit. And there'll be times the opposite, that when you come early to the kohen, you'll be mafsid. Let's just apply some of the halachas we just learned. For example, if a person was already muchlat, means he already went to the kohen, and and normally the rule is, again, we're going to learn more pratim in the later chapters, that once the simanim go away, now you go to the kohen, and now you're beginning to get better. But now, if you would have gone to the kohen earlier, and the kohen would have rendered you tahar, now that you hafach kulei lavan, so now you're like someone coming to the kohen the first time, and there is no head that hafach kulei lavan. You're like a person coming with a beheres katana, right? If you don't have any of the simanim, you'll be at least a muskar. But here you never went, so you remained in your state of hechlet. When you are already in a state of muchlat, and now hafach kulei lavan, now you're tar, somebody tar. And because of the simanim going away, and now, and by the way, over here, not only will you become muskar, you'll become muchlat, because since we do contrast it with the size before, now it got bigger, so there's a beheres, and you have to say it. We learned that right in the first halach in this chapter. Or the other direction, that if a person has a beheres and there are no simanim, which means had you come now to the kohen, you would have been musgard. And if you would have been musgard, and then you would have returned hafach kolei lavan. Also, we learned in halacha aleph, even though you were not muchlat, but you were musgard, you'll become tar. But nothing was declared, and you came later, so now you're coming the first time. Tami meaning without the samanim, you're at least going to become a musgard. And his gira kenish, and now in other words, that there will be times that this reason will be to your benefit, there will be times that the delay will be to your benefit, God willing, to be continued. Gewaldig Eden.